Hello learners, welcome to Learn Temper. In this video, we are going to look into the dimensions of the ethics. So the primary question that need to be asked is that what is meant by the dimensions, right? Dimensions in a simple term, we can say that what are the different perspectives the ethics can be studied? What are the different ways the ethics can be analyzed? What are the theories that has been given to study the ethics? Who are the thinkers involved in giving the ethical study? Whether there is a religion is involved, whether there are some theories are involved, how the ethics can be studied, whether law is a guiding factor, whether rules and regulations are the guiding factors for the ethics are being studied in the dimensions of the ethics. In this dimensions of ethics, we are broadly classifying ethics into four primary categories. That is, one is the meta ethics, second is the normative ethics, third is the descriptive ethics, and fourth is the applied part of the ethics. The meta ethics generally talks about what are the definitions or what are the meanings of the basic terms, what is meant by good, what is meant by bad, right? So those things have been dwelt into the meta ethics, right? If your actions are leading to the outcomes in a very positive direction, whether that action is really good or not, so those kind of things are actually dealt in the meta ethics. Don't worry, we will be dealing all this meta ethics, normative ethics, etc. in the coming videos when the moral thinkers actually starts. In that, we'll be looking into each and every aspects of these dimensions of ethics in very detail. But in this video, we'll be looking into the brief about what are the dimensions of the ethics. In normative ethics is generally termed as the theory part of the ethics. There is a theory which is given by the many thinkers, etc. In case of deontology, in the normative ethics can be subdivided into deontological ethics, teleological ethics, virtue ethics. Deontological ethics talks about generally there are certain values, there are certain moral values which remains universally same irrespective of the situation that is faced. For example, when I say that you should not lie, it means what? It means that you should not lie in all the circumstances. That is what is meant in the deontological ethics. The main proponent of the deontological ethics is Kant. The second is the teleological ethics. Teleological ethics actually talks about the actions. What are the actions that you are doing? What is the outcome? So this is primarily based upon outcome of your action. It is not concerned with whether your intention, but definitely it is concerned with the outcome. This is primarily the person who is involved is utilitarian principle that is given by Jeremy Bentham. Virtue ethics talks about what is the virtue, the moral character of the person. This is given by Aristotle, and there are many thinkers involved in the virtue ethics. Similarly, in case of applied ethics, we also deal with bioethics, cyber ethics, environmental ethics, and the international ethics. Now, as I said before, the normative ethics gives about a framework or the study of the ethical principles, which includes theories, etc. And it talks about what is morally right and what is morally wrong. And it also gets into the question what need to be done, etc. Now, in this, as we said before, it also leads to a concept called consequentialism. Consequentialism actually talks about what is the outcome of your actions that has been dealt in the consequentialism. Deontology we already seen, virtue ethics also we already seen, and ethics of care generally it is also called a feminist kind of ethics. It talks about what is the role of a female or what is the role of a people who are actually involved in the care ethics, right? In case of medical professionals, in case of the people who are involved in caregiving, palliative cares, etc. Palliative cares is a care which is generally given to the person who is involved in the treatment of I would say the treatment is very specific, that there is no cure for the particular disease, right? Those things are called as palliative care. And the meta ethics, as we discussed before, it dwells into the question what is the meaning of the moral terms, okay? What kind of moral objective is going to achieve, whether the moral values are objective or it is subjective in nature. Those things are actually dealt in these things. Now, in case of applied ethics, we have seen the application of the ethics part in case of healthcare, business ethics, and environmental ethics. In case of business ethics, for example, whether the business has been done in the right or proper manner or not. For example, let us say the situation where the people are affected with the floods. Now the basic needs has to be satisfied to the people, including the milk, food, etc. Now there is a shopkeeper who is selling these basic needs good at a high inflated price. Don't you see he is doing unethical practice, right? Even though you might say, sir, this is the supply and demand, what is wrong in it? No, actually there is wrong in it, because you should understand the pain of the people who are suffering, and you are skyrocketing the prices is actually not leading to any good outcome for the larger good, right or not? So those things are actually dealt in the applied ethics. Now next we are looking into the individual ethics, how individual pursue the moral values, virtues and behaviors, and how it will lead to development of the moral character, which leads to personal integrity and moral reasoning of the person. In case of descriptive ethics, we generally looks into analyzing the moral behaviors and moral beliefs and practical systems across the different peoples and different societies, etc. And it also leads in describing the real life situation, which includes the moral attitudes, cultural variations and moral developments. Social ethics, definitely when we talk about distributive justice, right? As a society, we are living in a civilized society where the justice has to be served by the established organizations, including judiciary, right? Now, how this ethics, social ethics, can be applied to serving the justice is been dealt in the category of social ethics. Next, we look into the certain examples where these dimensions of ethics can be seen in and around India and across the world as well. When you take individual dimensions of ethics, for example, you take Malala Yousafzai. She's a Pakistani activist, everybody knows. She's also a Nobel laureate, right? She shared the Nobel that prize with Kailash Satyarthi of India, right? Now she is a person who demonstrated her valor towards the human education, right or not? She stood for the justice, right? This is what she believed in. This is where our individual dimensions of ethics comes into picture. In case of social dimension, we can give many examples, but I have given here Martin Luther King Jr., the famous movement that he has took up for the racial injustice that is happening in the USA, right or not? See, according to his way of achieving the justice is what the moral value of understanding the racial discrimination should go, the segregation laws that is there in the USA should go, etc. That is what the Martin Luther King was trying for. Next is the cultural dimension. When you take the examples of the Maasai people of East Africa, you don't have to give them the lectures about the environment, right? They are the people, by culturally they protect the environment and preserve the environment. I'm giving this specific example. You might be asking, sir, we don't can't we find this kind of examples in India? Definitely we have examples in India. Almost all the tribal communities in India are in line with the living of the environment, right? We cannot underestimate the efforts done by the tribal peoples in India, right? So one of the example I have given from the cultural dimension is the Maasai people of East Africa. Now I have given the professional dimension also. I have given one doctor's example where he worked for the sexual violence taking place in African countries, etc. But you can give the professional dimensions including B.R. Ambedkar, who actually worked for the social injustice, etc. Likewise, there are many people, Bindeshwar Pathak, who established the Sulabh International, and recently he was passed away, and he worked for the manual scavenging. Anyhow, I have given these examples in the coming slides. Now, in case of environmental dimension, the teenage activist, right, the Greta Thunberg, she is from Sweden. You might have seen she asked the question, how dare you, in the United Nations, right or not? So which means what her way of approaching the ethics of environmental dimension, you can understand how core values she believed in, right? Next comes the political dimension. Example, very good example that we can give is Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela, who fought against the apartheid system or the segregation system, the injustice done to the black population by the British minority government, etc. The famous book that he has, autobiography that he has written, is the Long Walk to Freedom, right? So the very beautiful book, you can understand the pain, etc. that he was going through, and the peaceful moment that he led actually led to end of apartheid in South Africa. In case of technological dimension also, how the technology can be used for the ethical values, etc. can be seen. The recent emergence of artificial intelligence, how the racial profiling is been made in the society and targeting, very good example we can give is China. China is actually doing mass surveillance of its people, right or not? How the technology is used for unethical purposes, the mass surveillance of the state, right or not? Right now, the economic dimension, as we said, the fair trade movement, the fair practices, etc. that we are taking up, that also comes under the dimensions of the ethics, right? Now, when you look, these are the Western ways of looking the dimensions of the ethics. So dimension of ethics actually evolved in India as well. There are different dimensions of the ethics that India has given. India was a pioneer in giving these dimensions of the ethics. The first and foremost, the idea that we divide the dimension of ethics is the dharma. What is meant by dharma? Dharma means the duty. Dharma means responsibility. Dharma means the righteousness a person should follow, right or not? The duty of the people to follow in a right direction, that is dharma. This duty to be followed, which actually leads to what? A virtuous, meaningful life of the person. And moreover, dharma emphasizes the importance of what? Fulfilling one's duties and obligation. For example, you are a child, you have certain duties. When you are a father, you have certain duties towards your child, right or not? There are certain duties that was established, and we study in the category of what? Dharma. Now, next is the karma. Karma means, generally we say, whenever you do certain bad things, it will affect you because the karma follows you. Which means what? The things that we do, unconsciously or consciously also, but you should always understand there will be a consequence of your actions. Whether it is a good action or a bad action, but certainly you will face this karma. Right or not? Right. Now, generally people in India fear that if they are doing any unethical act, etc., they think that the karma will follows them. Right or not? Not only karma follows in the present birth, but also it will follow through the subsequent birth also. This is the philosophy that Hinduism imbibes, right? Now, this also the dimensions of the ethics. Third is the ahimsa. Ahimsa, the teachings of Ahimsa, Gandhiji was inspired from the teachings of Vartamana Mahavira or Jainism per se, right? Now, not only from his teaching, but also the religion, the Jainism has given the concept of Ahimsa and non-violence, which is a pure non-violence and not killing any animals, etc. Right? This is also the dimension of dimensions of the ethics. Now, next dimension is Satya. Satya is truth. Truth means the truthfulness always, truth should be followed in all circumstances, in all ways. The truthfulness actually leads to what? The honesty and integrity of the person, which also gives a thought in your speech and actions. And we should refrain from our falsehood and deception and dishonesty, right or not? And the yoga and meditation, when we look at the yoga and meditation, it also talks about the inner purification of the soul, right? Inner discipline or self-discipline, mindfulness and self-awareness of the individual, right or not? And the social ethics and social harmony, these principles of Indian way of dimensions can also be seen in the principles of social justice and equality and compassion, right? And anyhow, there is something called as spiritual ethics, which talks about your spirituality and other dimensions of your inner feelings, etc. When we observe closely that the Western way of thinking or the Western way of dividing the ethics is different from the Indian way of dividing the ethics, right? Dimensions of the ethics. Because the Indian way of dividing the dimensions of the ethics talks about the inner feelings or inner spirituality, and the Western way of dividing the ethics is very different. They are of more of categorizing the ethics into more of different dimensions. But in India, it is of different of dealing in the inner feelings. Now, look at the same examples, the more or less the same example that we'll find in case of individual example. When the social activists are doing protest, social activists are doing protest for what? For individual benefit? No, they think that these people lead forefront that any injustice happening in the society, these people should come and do justice. They are trying to strive for achieving the justice. It can be racial discrimination, it can be inequality, etc. Now, this can also be seen in case of social dimensions as well, cultural dimensions. When you see in the cultural dimensions, when there is a festivals happening in India, especially Diwali, Eid, right? During this festival times, we people tend to give our charity or food, etc., to the poor people or poor people in need, right? Now, there is a professional dimension also, like patient confidentiality, doctor patient confidentiality, advocate client confidentiality, etc. And similarly, we also have the environmental dimension. There are many examples that I have added in the coming slides about the environmental dimension for the people involved. For example, the Chipko movement that took place in India for saving the trees, Narmada Bachao Andolan by Medha Patekar. So these things actually gives the environmental dimensions of Indian way of understanding the dimensions of the ethics. Similarly, there are political dimensions also, now technological dimensions and economic dimensions. Now, by this slide, we are coming to end of this video, and subsequently I am also making the other videos. Till then, thank you.